Okay, we're going to start tutorial 4 of using electric, and first thing we're going to do is right click on this tutorial 3 and say save link as, and just to make sure it's consistent, tutorial 3 save. Yes, I want to replace it. Then I'm going to go open up electric. And I'm going to try to stick through the tutorial just like I've done in the other ones. And let's go ahead and do a tile or window, adjust position, tile horizontally, pull this over, go to File, Open Library, open Tutorial 3. There's where we left off with the inverter. Let's go to File, Save Library As, Tutorial 4. And then let's go right click on this cell group and say duplicate cells, or select duplicate cells in group, and name this group. We're going to make a NAND gate, NAND underscore 2, where the 2 corresponds to a 2-input NAND gate. So we'll hit OK. And then open up the schematic view. And then next we're going to delete all these wires. Actually, I'm going to delete the icon too. And delete that wire. So forth. And the reason we're doing this is this allows us to use the PMOS and NMOS nodes without having to reset the SPICE model or adjust the position of the text and all that. So let's change the width of this one to 10. Did it say to do that? Yes, it did. Okay. And then let's draw the schematic of the NAND gate. Excuse me. Okay, so we go left click, right click, and then let's select that and do a Control C. Come over here, a Control V. That looks nice. And then expand a little, pull this down. Of course, I have my bind key set, so F is fill the window and X is zoom out. Control C, Control V. Move that up a little, fit, right, left click, right click, left click, right click, and let's slide this up a teeny bit. Left click, right click, and let's do a left click, down and over. And then let's come over here, left click, right click, etc. Then let's get our off-page nodes. Throw 3 of those down. There. There. And there. Then left click, right click, etc. And let's do an F5. No errors. We need to export, so we'll select that. Notice how the port's high there, is showing. Do a Control E. And that one is A. And then another Control E. That one is B. And then a Control E. And we'll call this A NAND B instead of out, just to be a little bit different. Let's hit F5 again. No issues. So let's go over and delete the icon view there. Delete cell. And then it's not used anywhere, so we can do that. Let's go up to View, Make Icon View, and then it instantiates the icon view and makes the new view here, so we can go look at that view here. Or we can go down and press Control D to go into the cell there, descend down. Instead of using Control D, let's use the menu items. So Cell, notice I have it selected. So Cell, down hierarchy. There we go. And let's delete the box because we don't want to make AND gates with boxes. So let me make a mistake. I can select that. And then I can hit Shift and deselect the top part. Move it over here, out of the way. Hit Control J a few times to rotate. Fit. Next, I'm going to throw down a circle. Notice we're in the artwork section. So let's grab the circle. Let's Control I it and set the degrees of the circle to 180. Apply. OK. Then let's Control J that a few times. Let's put another circle in. Control I that and set the size of that one to 1 and 1. Hit OK. Fit. Whoops. Pull this over here. Let's turn the grid on. Control G. And let's move this over. Let's see. Trying to follow the tutorial. I think to 2. Yep, that looks good. Select this. Instead of dragging that over, I'm going to use the mouse keys, or I'm sorry, the arrow keys. Just slide it over like that. Hit Fit. All right. No, I'm not on grid, so why don't I fix that? Go up. Now I'm on grid. All right. Now we need to draw the body of the icon. So I'm going to select Open Polygon. Throw that down here. Now I don't want to resize it, so before I use size interactively, I don't use this. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to go to Edit, Modes, Edit, and Toggle Outline Edit, or press Y. And you know what? This one's hard to remember, at least it is for me. So I'm just going to hit Y from now on, but I'm going to pause again because whenever I edit these shapes, I don't use Control B or change size. I use this Edit, Modes, Edit, Toggle Outline Edit. And once you learn just to press Y, it's easy. So I'm going to press Y. We're going to use this from now on. Now notice my cursor is now a pencil. To get out of this mode, I can hit Y and I'm out of the mode. Or I can press Y again and I go into the mode. So I'm going to go over here with my pencil, use the left mouse button, click on that, and drag it over, that vertex over. Do the same thing here. Go up here. Then I've got this extra vertex here. What I'm going to do there is I'm going to hit delete. And let me look. Oh, you know what? It's not following the tutorial, so let me pull this over. Press Y to get out of the mode. Come over here. Use the left arrow on the keyboard, move that over. Go back to the polygon here, press Y, get back into the mode. And then now I want to move this over, but I want to extend that vertex over, so I'm going to do just what I do when I draw schematics, and that is I'm going to right click. And I could right click here and be done, but I'm not going to. I'm going to right click there. Oops, that's not what I wanted. So I'm going to drag this down, move that over, and then drag this up. And then press Y to get out of that Edit, Modes, Edit, Toggle Outline Edit. And then look at my, make sure my icon matches what's in the tutorial. And you know what? Let's see, it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And mine looks a little different, I think. 1, 2. No, I guess it's the same. All right, so now I can press Control U to go up in the hierarchy. And the only place this cell is used is it's instantiated in the schematic of the its own schematic, just so you can see what the icon looks like. Let's turn the grid off. That can make you dizzy looking at it. Let's go ahead and save our library. That's what it says to do. And let's make a cell called, let's simulate the operation of the NAND gate. Let's make a cell, Control N, and let's use the menu here, called NAND underscore sim, and it's a schematic. Say OK. Now I'm going to instantiate the icon. I don't want to do this, because that will show, let's look at it, that'll show the whole thing there, and that's not what I want, so let's hit delete. Let's instead either pull this icon down like that, or go back to components, cell, select the NAND icon and pull it in like that. Either one will work. You know, I'm going to center the icon on the origin, so I'll select it, press Q, and then put the X position as 0 and the Y position as 0. Now it's centered, and of course if I go back in the icon view, it puts the center where the center is in the icon. So there's my sim. Let me press X and zoom out, and then I can put my wires in there. And I'm going to make a mistake. Let's put some extra pins, and then let's press F5, Tools, DRC, check. And I've got 6 errors, and what do you want to bet they're all extra pins? Okay, and floating arcs. So I'm going to go first. I can't get rid of the floating arcs until I rename it. And I'm going to go to Edit, Clean Up Cell, Clean Up Pins Everywhere. And in my personal key bindings, I have F4 bound to this, so because I like to clean up extra arcs or whatever all the time. So I hit Clean Up Pins Everywhere, and it removes 3 pins. Now when I do an F5, it just has the 3 errors, which are the 3 floating arcs. All right, so let's go. Select that as in. Okay, call that one out. And then let's go and press or put that arc right in there. Now it's not connected because we haven't made a connection. So when I hit F5, I get 2 errors. And let's see what the errors are. 1, the node's not connected. It's touching but not connected. And then a floating arc. Let's fix that. Let's go over here. This is another favorite key, especially for people who like to just place things right next to each other or on the ports on each other. Let's go to Tools, Routing, Auto Stitch Highlighted Now. And so it says Job Auto Stitching 1 wire arc added. So when I hit F5, oops, let's see what happened. Oh, unnecessary pin. So let's go back and do our cleanup. Whoops, edit, clean up cell, clean up pins everywhere, hit F5, now no errors, and let's just move this over just to match. Of course, we could have put this down and connected it directly up to begin with and saved ourselves a little effort. Let's go to miscellaneous, spice code, drop that down, then go query that. Go to multi-line, and I'm copying from the tutorial. So let's throw our VDD down. VDD, VDD 0, DC 5, VN, N 0, DC pulse 0, 5, 10 nano, 1 nano. Let's put a load of a quarter puff. From the output to ground of 200, whoops, ground, that's a common mistake, 250, putting O for ground, 250 femto. Dot tran, 0 to 40N, and dot include C colon backslash electric backslash C5 models. And you know what? I'm going to pause again. I'm going to pause right now. Well, let's say OK. And let's edit the text. And I want to see if I can get it to make an error or get an exception caught. So I'm going to specifically say what I'm doing here. So I'm going to hit Control-C with that text highlighted. Come down here, Control-V, go backspace, Control-V, Control-Z. Oh, that didn't do anything. So let's go here and Control-C, Control-V. All right, not ever to get it to fail, so I don't know. That's fine. So we'll hit OK. There's our text. That was just experimenting. OK. And so let's go now and simulate this cell. Hit Fit. Go to Tools, Simulation, Spice. Right Spice Deck. Bring up the waveforms, in and out. Hit OK. There they are. Let's go verify. Whoops. Let's go verify with Tools, Control Panel, Operation. We're not automatically deleting the raw files, because if we do, then when we close this, Electric will have no raw file to read. So we close this, go to the Explorer, show in and out. Yeah, let's drag that over. Let's double click on that one. We can change the colors, add the grid, zoom in, make measurements, etc. Alright, so let's see, are we sticking with the tutorial? Yes, we are. Alright, so let's hit save. Go back to the Explorer. Now it says to open up the NAND layout. So let's do that. And delete some arcs. So let's delete that arc, the delete button. Delete, delete. All those. And this one. Let's delete that arc. Delete. And then let me just draw a box around it just to make sure, see if I've got any little arcs in there that I need to delete that aren't present. And I don't. So then the tutorial says to take this arc and drag it over here. Take this arc and drag it over here, just so we can see they're connected. And of course, if they weren't, we could put them over and press F2 to do the auto stitching. Okay. So next it says resize these two nodes. So they're 10. Actually, let's do this to get, that's not. Make that a 10. And make this a 10. Okay. And let's see, what next? Oh, do some copying. So let's copy, select that node, Control-C, Control-V, Control-V, select this node, Control-C, Control-V, select this node, Control-C, Control-V, and last but not least, this one, Control-C, Control-V. And it says to make the connections. So let's do that. You know what? Let's fix that. We could do query and just change the width to 3 and hit apply. Or we can hit Control-Z a few times. Slide this up so it's aligned. I think that's where it is. And just go over. And once it's aligned, it makes a smaller arc. And of course, there's so many ways of doing these things. And I'm handicapping myself by not zooming in. Can turn the grid on if we want. Let's go over here. What happens if I make the connection and a metal, let's say I go from here to here and metal shows up, is I can hit Control-Z and then go back and select the right arc. Let's do that this time. Let's try to align those and come back over here. It's just a matter of selecting this arc instead of this one. Okay, let's turn the grid off. That makes you dizzy. Wire these two together. Wire these two together. And then move everything together. So you can do this several ways. We can drag it, get them close, zoom in, and then just use the arrow keys to get us close like that. That seems to work well. And since time is money, let's just move everything in. And then we'll zoom in and use the arrow keys. Select both of those. Deselect using Shift that. Drag them in. Pull that one in. And then let's zoom in here. Select that and use the arrow key. Select that and use the arrow key. Of course, if I was doing this for a product, I would find out what the design rules are and make things tighter, but it's not that important for this example. Use the arrow keys, and I'm kind of eyeballing it to get it centered. And then arrow key. Arrow key. Zoom on that. And then let's move, set expand a little or fit. Grab that. Let's just move all that over and then down. So the wells are abutting. Fit. And you know what? Let's make this fit a little bit closer to the tutorial. Those were closer. I'll have to do a DRC here now and see how tight we are. So let's hit F5. 4 errors. Let's find out what they are. Interesting. So let's deselect that. Don't know why that came up as an error. Let's pull that apart and see what happens. And see if we got an extra arc in there. I don't know why we have that. Oh, it's got an extra arc, so let's get rid of that. Extra stuff is bad. Notice how I use the highlight to see what was there. Then hit F5. Hey, no errors. Yay. Let's see. Increase the size of these wells is the next thing we have to do from 20 to 30. And let's center that kind of. Let's see. Is that what we have? Yeah. And then this one is 30. Okay. Hit F5 again. Life is good. Alright. So now let's do the well check. Or let's connect things up just like in the tutorial. This one goes up. This one goes down. And this one, left click, right click, right click, right click, and let's grab that. We got an extra pin there. So let's select that. Oops, Control Z. Let's select the right one. Use the Control that, move it over so it looks good. Let's go to my favorite, Edit, Clean Up Cell, Clean Up Pins Everywhere. Hit F5, no errors. Next is to connect the gates together. Let's just left click and let it auto route and see what happens. Hit F5, no errors. Put down the metal 1, poly 1 contacts. I don't know where they're at, so I'll just guess. And that looks about right there. And let's do this. Left click, right click. Select that node and go to width to 2. Of course, we could select neither end. And let's do the same thing here. Select that node, query, and of course if we started with the narrow one and went the other way, we wouldn't have to do it this way. I think we might get an error here because this piece of poly is too close to this one, but let's find out. 5 errors. Okay, sure enough. So let's move it over till it touches. Hit F5, no errors. Alright, what next? Oh yeah, I don't know if the 3D viewer is installed on this computer, so let's find out. Let's go to Window, 3D window, 3D view. Hey, it is. So let's move that up. Grab it with the mouse, turn it around. Use the scroll bar in the middle of the mouse to zoom in or zoom out. And you can see here's our output. Here's our two inputs, here and here. So how are we going to get our output out when we've got inputs on metal 1 adjacent to it? So let's go ahead and fix that. Notice the only exports we have so far are the VDD and the ground. Use the control and click just to show that. Whoops. Are the exports that we copied from the inverter cell. So let's go put metal 1, metal 2 contacts down in here. Here. And throw it down in here. And you know what? Because that 3D viewer is so much fun, let's go ahead and, before we connect those up, look at the 3D view. Pull it up. And now you can see those pieces of metal 2 are above things. So, above everything. So make sure we have metal 1 selected. Select that node, right click, and let's go look at the view again. And on my bind keys I have this menu command bound to 3, so I can just press 3 and get this 3D viewer, and this is really useful when you're learning layout. So pull it around and see. I got a feeling if we were to do a DRC, this notch would be too close, so let's move this up so it doesn't flunk the DRCs. Let's hit fit, tie, oops, F9. Let's hit tools, window, and whoops, I don't know how I got into that. Let's move this one up. And again, the mouse cursor or the arrow keys work really well when doing this instead of the mouse. Hit F5, no errors. I think next is going to be exporting, and let's look at the 3D view one more time. Okay, whoops, let's hit window, tile windows, adjust position, fit, and then let's export. Now I'm going to make a mistake here and we'll discuss it, but this is a common thing. Notice how these two transistors are in series, so from an electrical point of view it doesn't matter that much which one is A and B. And if we go back and look at the NAND gate, we've defined B as the one connected to ground, the transistor whose gate is connected to B and then connected to ground here. And so we should export this as B, but we're not going to do that. We're going to export it as A, and then Control E, B, and then this will export as A NAND B. And you know what? Let's go ahead and change the size, and it says to change the size to 4. So I'm going to use Control till I get this one now selected. And then I'm going to use Shift to select the other ones. Then I'm going to hit Query, Control I, and change the size to 4. And notice I'm doing all of them at the same time. Okay, so now I hit Well Check, and let's just use the menu so you can see. Maybe it'll slow me down a little. Check wells, no errors. DRC, F5, no errors. L for NCC, and I get errors. And I look, and I see that one error is this transistor here. And it's hard working with this tiny screen. And the other error is this transistor here. In other words, they don't correspond to each other. So let's go ahead and close that. And so we need to move this export to B and this one to A. And this is a common, I bring this up and I show you the error because it's a common mistake when you're first learning to do layout and do an LVS. And so let's go ahead and fix that. And let's fix it by, I'm going to rename this using the control to cycle through as B. But since there's already a B, it's not going to let you name it the same export, and it names it _1. Come back over here and name this A, and then I can go back here and rename this B. Okay, hit F5, hit well check, hit LVS, and we have our layout, we have our schematic, everything matching, our icon. Life is good. So the last part is the last part of the tutorial is to simulate with a layout. And if you recall, Electric has you can simulate the layout with some rudimentary parasitics, which is a very nice feature for a layout editor. And so some layout editors, or most I should say, you have to use a special tool to extract parasitics. Well, you can get a decent estimate with using Electric's estimates for capacitances to the substrate of metal, poly, all those things, and you can set those in the preferences here. All right, anyway, let's go back and create, let's save the library. Let's go back and create a layout view of this simulation. And you know what, when I'm thinking about this, normally I put the sim first so that all the simulation views are located in the same area in the library, but I didn't in this case for some reason. So let's go cell or control N, new cell, layout, NAND, _sim, hit OK, and then let's just drag the layout in. And of course, you drag it over. I just want people to know how you can do this. Let's hit that, hit delete, or you can go over to Components, Cell, and then drag the NAND layout or select the NAND layout and drop it in here. You notice I don't like to look at the stuff in here, so let me just put some wires, and I remember, now we can show it. You can remember this was on metal 1, the VDD was on metal 1, ground was on metal 1. Now, if I drag these over, they're going to also be on metal 1. So I'm going to hit Control Z, go back up here, hit metal 2, and then just drag them up. Okay, but I had to select the metal 2. And then, I'm going to name the nodes. And I can't name this VDD or else it won't pass the well check. So I got to go over, select the pin, hit Control E, VDD. Select the pin, Control E, GND. And you know what? Let's select that pin and move it over with the mouse cursor a little bit. Same thing. Let's just drag this one over. And then shrink this a little bit. And I didn't make any care about the how these were tied. So let's do a DRC real quick, see if it passes. It does. So I'm going to name these nodes. Name that one. That one's input B. And that was, let's see, in our simulation schematic, input B was VDD, input A was in. So let's go input V, we're just going to name VDD. And here we named in. And then here we named out. Notice I can't see those, so let me take care of that. Zoom in there. Use the control, very useful. And then shift. And then let's go, what did we say to name the size? The unit size to 3. Hit apply. And I'm going to abandon the tutorial and hit 4 just to make them a little bit bigger. Now again, whenever I use the power symbol, I can't just name the node inside. I've got to export it. And so if I hit F5, it's fine. If I hit well check, it works. But if I hit NCC to compare the simulation schematic to the layout, I get errors. And again, I can't name this. So what I'm going to do, delete this, and I'm simply going to come over here, select that pin, left click, and then come down here and just connect a VDD to that input just to get the simulation to work. Do an F5 to make sure it simulates all right. You know what? Do an LVS. We're looking good. Let's go back to our nice little 3D viewer and view the 3D. And so now I have my VDD here is connected to one of the inputs and to power. My ground is coming down here. And I've got my input, my output. I'm ready to simulate. Of course, I need spice text. And so let's go copy the spice text here. Control C. Man, I love that. Control C, Control V, and Control Z for undo. Control V. And then let's change the size to 5. And let's try 3. And looking good. Save. And we're ready. That's about it in this tutorial. We're ready to simulate. Since we were pretty fast doing the tutorial, let's do simulate. Let's go to Window, or Tools rather. Before we do that, let's talk about the parasitics. And let's see, Tools. You can set parasitics here. What they are is really nice. But let's not worry about what they're set at. The default is the C5 process or something similar. You can go over here to Spice in your setups, and you can select transistor areas and perimeter, or conservative RC, which treats the metal and poly and all those lines inside as RC transmission lines and puts a lot of estimates for parasitics. Now, this isn't a really full-blown parasitic extraction like you would get in a tool that's specifically made for extracting parasitics, but it still does a really good job in giving you an estimate for delays without bogging down your simulator. We're not going to worry about that because our layout's tiny, so let's just hit cancel. And then go up here to Simulation, Spice, Right Spice Deck, and then in and out. In goes, out doesn't. Do I have something set up wrong? So out. Let's close that. So I have out here. Let me look. That node's labeled out. I have VDD. Let's do an F5 again. A well check. And a layout versus schematic. So what is wrong? VN. Do I have this node labeled in? Yes. Let me try that one more time. I don't know what I did wrong. Mistakes are good. Good for learning. In looks good. VDD, hit Control and out. VDD's good, but out's not moving. So let's go take a look at the net list. There's our top. Out, in, VDD, ground, VDD. Dot include. Ground. Let me just see if this is a spice issue. Sometimes it is. So dot global GND. Is it run? Nope. How about this? Let's try just to make sure that I GND 0, DC 0. I'm just making sure that there's a ground run. Nope. Alright, I got some issue. So let's see. VN 0, DC pulse 0 to 510 nano, C load out, VDD 0. Oh, you know what? I should check. NMOS, NMOS, PMOS, PMOS, VDD, VDD, ground, ground. So when I go through just to make sure, I always check substrate connections because that can often be an issue. So I got everything, electric's doing everything fine because I've got the name of the cell and then input, output, input, ground, VDD, and then the call in the cell is, something's not right. Oh, the name, yeah. So call isn't right. So I got VDD ground, ground VDD, then I got VDD again, which is what the B input is. Then my A and B and my out, A NAND B are swapped. What the heck? Oh, yeah, they are, because I didn't connect them up right. Okay, and it's only going to check the connectivity. This is the labeled output. It doesn't check the names, because if it did that, then if you went in a layout and you didn't label all the names, you'd have to go in and label all the names in your layout, so that's not a practical thing to do. But I labeled them incorrectly. I labeled this as in and this is out, so let's go back and fix that. This one should be, let's just delete that name, and then this one should be, let's make sure I didn't do the same mistake. Nope, I didn't. Good. Out, and then in, and of course it just tells you that things are connected right. You have to connect the probe and the power supply and all that correctly. So this was a user mistake. So let's go to Tools, Built-in, Simulation rather, Spice, Right Spice Deck. I bet it works this time. Out, in, okay, there we go. Pulls it up, and then in, out, etc. Alright, so let's go ahead and stop, and that was a good thing to note. And again, we can't use the NCC to check. Before we quit, let's change that back to 4, I think it was, apply. Okay, good enough, so that it's correct. But it won't check the names that you label the wires. That's something you have to check on the top level. Make sure everything's connected, and that's why simulating is important. All right, let's go ahead and stop here.